How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Black Metal Rebellion. I'm your host, Jesse Morgan, and today we have a review to do on the band Gravkväde. I'm not sure if that's actually spelled Gravkväde or if it's pronounced Gravkväde. Either way, I got a review to do on them on the album Grav, Aske. Their first debut full-length album, released November 2nd, 2018. These guys are a atmospheric kind of DSBM band with some elements of doom and funeral doom that started in 2016 in Sweden. Comes in a digibook style CD case and was put out on Avant-Garde Music, and the artwork was done by Death Until Death. Very interesting name for sure. Now the cool thing about Gravkväde, that's how I'm going to pronounce it, is that the main guy that kind of runs the show here for this band, Ezra Nat Chaos, he also has a couple other projects too. His kind of solo project called Nat Chaos, and a more like noise band that's like blackened noise. I did a review on one of their releases a while back called Nihilistic Pain, so that's pretty neat. Anywho, the members for this release was, I believe, Domadas on vocals, and then Ezra Nat Chaos on like pretty much everything else. But as of recently, they also got two more members, that being Gravra on bass and Vidunder on drums. So I guess that's probably for more live purposes. Once again, this just has Domadas on vocals, and then as you can see here, Nat Chaos on all instruments whenever that wants to focus. But yeah, it's not going to focus because it's a pain in the ass. So anyways, let's get into this. I would have loved to do a quick review on this when I got it, but I kind of just never had time. This is their first demo called Grav Sorg. Pretty interesting stuff, basically the same as what you got on Grav Aske. Came on a red tape with a pro printed label there. The only thing that I had a problem with this was that the material, the two songs that are on this, was played once and that was it. It didn't play again. It didn't play on the back of the tape or anything like that. But other than that, Grav Sorg is pretty much like Grav Aske, and they did another demo after this called Grav Cold. So if you like Grav Aske, the debut album, you'll like the two demos they made before. The two demos are actually compiled into a compilation on CD, so you don't have to get the tape if you don't want. There's a compilation of that called Sorg Cold, I think. So I might eventually pick that up. We'll see. But yeah, I got this with a couple of things. It came with this nice patch. It's pretty big. It's like, I think, almost 4.5 by 3.5 inches wide. Got their logo there, and then they got their kind of symbol there with the crow and the crescent. And it also came with this kind of cool mini poster with Domadas and Ezra standing there in the creepy, I don't know, chapel of some sort perhaps. But yeah, really neat that they included that. Thanks for including that, guys, and thanks for hooking it up for a really nice price. Let's now get into this review. So the vocals were a kind of medium level to a little bit high in the mix at times. Uh, Good though. It wasn't a bad thing. Lots of reverb. Had a very cave-like, echoey, reverbed feel to it. The vocals were just these wretched howls and wails, very raspy and demonic. Pretty much just had a very agonizing sound. He delivered this just tortured, maddening performance, done very well and consistently throughout. So yeah, it's just quite the just onslaught of just really tortured, agonizing vocals. Pretty much what you'd expect for DSBM. You know, if you're used to things like Finite or um, Arismenda or things like that, you'll know what's coming for this. As for the guitars, the guitars were also medium level in the mix. Could have been higher at times for me personally, but the tone was this kind of like raw, buzzing, kind of like a Cazador from Fallout New Vegas. This very like insect buzzing tone to it. Fit the like the composition and music really well. You had dissonant riffs, you had atmospheric riffs, kind of had this dark and hopeless feeling about it. There's tremolos, and then there's kind of like some drawn out droning riffs, some slow kind of moody, clean notes that were performed in here. There's some like up-raked chording done, and as well there's also some kind of like movie samples and like female shrieks thrown in as well into the composition. So lots of stuff going on there. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more variation, but we'll get into that later. As for the bass, I don't think I actually noticed its presence, and if it was there, it was very low in the mix. But there was some keyboard elements, so let's talk about those. There's some like low humming, like doomy synth noises. There's some like running water or bubbling brook kind of sounds thrown in at the beginning and ending of certain songs. There's these drawn out long kind of coarse chords, some ambient noises thrown in there via the keyboard or synths that was going on. So that was neat. It definitely added to the atmosphere, added to the kind of creepy mood, gave it a little bit extra flavor. Now let's talk about the drums. The drums, I think, were kind of like half programmed and half like performed. There's some parts in there that I could definitely tell were a little bit more programmed feeling, too kind of mechanical to sound like an actual person performed them. But then there are some parts that were added in that I feel like that were just like off the grid enough to not feel like it was programmed. So I think it was about half and half there. There was it had a poppy snare going on, kind of a thudding kick. It wasn't too loud of a kick though. It was like kind of just above mid-level of a kick. It wasn't like very pronounced. There's also some of those like cymbal ride ticks that I like thrown in there, so that was kind of neat. I wasn't expecting that to be included in the drumming, because with samples, that's another thing too. With samples, you don't really hear those extra little bells and whistles. You normally just kind of get like the bare bones kind of programmed drums. So that's why I feel there's also some programmed or actual performed drums in there, not programmed. So it was neat to kind of hear that. The floor tom that was used in it was pretty dominant when it was hit. It's kind of, I think, used for like this dramatic effect, and kind of added to that like looming, ominous, kind of doomy, forlorn, just like sound and atmosphere that was going on. There's some quick tom fills that kind of sounded programmed. Then there was like I think one or two slow rolls that happened as well. Those seemed a little bit more human and actually performed, not programmed. Either way though, the drums complemented the composition of the songs and definitely added to the overall feeling and sense of dread that that Gravkväde was trying to, come across. There's also some snare rolls here and there quickly, some double kicks thrown in for like a little bit of speedier parts, thrown in for good measure. So there's a bit going on with the drums. It's not just all one thing. So that's pretty cool. Alright, now let's talk about my favorite tracks on here. The 4 tracks that were on here were Dod's Psalm, which was 15 minutes long, almost 16. Kotet's Plaga, no, not Kotex, that's a female hygiene product, but Kotet's Plaga, around 6.5 minutes. There's Anderiket at 14 minutes and 14 seconds. And there was, I can't pronounce this, but Sorgekt at 8 minutes. So roughly a 45-minute long album. And out of that, I found that the first song, Dod's Psalm, was probably one of the better ones. It sets the stage for what's coming in this album. It gives a good first impression. Very emotional, very kind of haunting and dark. It kind of had also like the biggest journey, in this album as well. Like per song, it seemed like each song could have been its own kind of separate journey through horror and like just grimness. But I found Dod's Psalm to have like the biggest, most impactful journey, I guess, musically. And my second favorite track on here is number 3, and that's Anderiket. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that wrong too, but hey. Basically, this one was like 2 songs in one, because it would build and then kind of swell and then release again, get quiet, and then it would build and swell and release again and get quiet again. So I feel like that formula is indicative of like each song composition, because each song in this kind of did that. It'd start slow, build some atmosphere, and slowly rise, and then he'd start screaming, and then the drums and guitars would really pick up, and then that would last for a bit, and then it would start kind of dying off again, and he'd end with some like that bubbling brook creek noise, and like some low hum synths, and some kind of like just doom, 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 like it's kind of that ending atmospheric kind of drum noise. So yeah, I liked Anderiket because it was one of the more faster songs. Like once it got into the swell of the song and got some of the more climax parts, it did get really fast. There's some double kicks in there, there's some faster guitar parts. So yeah, Dod's Psalm and Anderiket were definitely my favorite songs, and they were the longest songs too. Like you'd think that I would enjoy maybe some shorter ones or whatever, but no, the longer ones on here definitely did it for me because of the journey you go through in it and just the different elements that were kind of included. So yeah, those are my favorite tracks. Now let's talk about my overall thoughts for this album. It's a twisted, dark, emotional experience, like I've been kind of saying, with a very disturbed, cold and grim atmosphere, an oppressive, isolated and claustrophobic feel happens a lot throughout this album, kind of reminiscent of a depraved kind of like torture porn horror film, because it just really leaves you just mentally just distraught sometimes. The full-length album by Gravkväde will definitely send chills down your spine and just kind of render you hopeless and unnerved by the end of it, kind of wondering what the fuck did I just go through. So yeah, really, really good. Once again, atmospheric, funeral, doom, depressive, suicidal black metal. Yeah, so definitely worth your time. The only weaknesses and improvements that I could think of, as usual with black metal, the bass. It needed to have some more clear, defined presence. But, once again, black metal doesn't normally have a lot of bass in it. So, another thing that I could have maybe enjoyed a little more if they had have added some more power chord style doom riffs, because they do claim, or well, I don't know if they claim, but like they are labeled as kind of like this doomy, funeral doomy band on top of just kind of atmospheric DSPM. So I would like to actually hear more doom stuff, more doomy riffs, more kind of power chord stuff that isn't just kind of kind of dark, kind of dissonant, atmospheric riffs, and maybe a little bit more variety in song structure, because once again, like I said, it starts off just slow, quiet, creepy, and just kind of slowly builds to like this kind of swelling climatic part, and then kind of drops off again at the end of the song, and kind of does that, you know, on repeat for each song, except for, like I said, Indericate, where it kind of seems like it does it twice. Sally the Camel has 2 humps. Like, that one had like pretty much 2 songs in one. So for that reason, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Still a really good suicidal black metal album with some kind of doomy elements here and there. Definitely worth your time. Go check this shit out. As you can see, I definitely support Gravkväde. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, because I think that could be Gravkväde, just because the little tidbit here, an A with the 2 dots above it normally makes it pronounce the noise, or any letter with the 2 dots normally makes it pronounce the noise. So if it's an O, it's ode, or if it's an A, it's A. So yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this kind of like rambly review, but I really enjoyed this stuff. It's definitely not something that you're going to want to put on if you're trying to feel like happy and uplifted, that's for sure. So prepare yourself when you listen to this. Make sure you're ready to not get too down in the dumps when you hear this, because it is a very emotional, dark, grim journey. So yeah, I'm Jesse Morgan, and I did buy this album. For Glory, for the Rebellion, Slimerella out.